The German
Yeah.
chancellor. So we got a new German chancellor after some drama, right? Merz finally, the first round of vote, he didn't get enough vote to become the
Yeah.
chancellor, which apparently never happened in the German
No.
history. So what's your take on that? He must be not very popular.
He
Is that
isn't.
what it is?
He isn't. It is absolutely unprecedented. He's the coalition that he's got, which is his own party, the CDU, the sister
Mm,
party of the CDU, which is the CSU, and the Social Democrats, control, in theory, 328 votes in the
mm,
German parliament. In the first round to appoint Merz, um, they only got 310 votes. So 18 MPs from the coalition either abstained or, in the case of five, voted against Merz. I mean, we know that they did because the opposition has 302 and the votes against Merz were 307. So
okay.
he's clearly got lots of opponents and enemies within his coalition. Now, they held the second vote. People were brought into line. This time, I think it was 325 voted for Merz, which means that three still didn't. So,
Mm,
I mean, there's clearly opposition to him. And I have to say, the more I've seen him close up now, as I have since the election, the less impressed by him I am. And the more I understand why people in Germany don't like him. He's very abrasive, he's very arrogant. He believes he's a genius, which he isn't, by the way. And his views are what you might call uh, conventional but completely out of date. I mean, in foreign policy, I mean, he still thinks the world is what it was. Well, in 1990 or sometime around then. I mean,
He apparently he had a fight or some kind of power struggle against Angela Merkel in
yeah,
2002. So it seems like within the CDU,
yeah,
there are two factions, at least two factions. One is
yeah,
the Angela Merkel faction of it, and the other is his. Because
yes,
after that fight, he left. He left politics for quite a few
yes,
years and worked for a law firm, but also he was at one point the board member of the BlackRock. So so with that kind of background, we can pretty much know what type of person that
yes,
that he is.
yes,
But the larger problem is what Germany go from here, because Angela Merkel is the one who convinced Putin to build the Nord Stream 2. So I got the feeling Angela Merkel and her faction within the CDU, they are more independent, more thinking
yeah.
more from Germany's perspective, where apparently this Merz guy, he is for many Germans, he's too pro-America, too close to America. Is that your
Well,
interpretation?
absolutely. That's exactly what he's the most pro-American politician to become Chancellor of Germany
Uh-huh.
since the 50s. I mean, since Adenauer in the 1950s. The most pro-American, the most anti-Russian, the most anti-Chinese. Also, by the way,
Mhm.
um, but of course, he imagines an America which is pre-Trump. So
Mhm.
already he's looking shaky there too. But you're absolutely correct. And the other thing to say is that, of course, BlackRock has a particularly bad reputation in Germany. If you
Uh-huh.
know, if there's a German TV series called Heimat, which was made many years ago, it means homeland, which is about the history of Germany. It's about it traces a family, the life of a family from 1918 until about 1990, roughly.
Mhm.
Anyway, and it was made many years ago, but there's a sequence in it in which one of the members of the family falls uh, under it falls. His business fails because he trusts a very sinister American finance
Mhm.
company, which is
Mhm.
obviously BlackRock. It's very thinly disguised. So yeah, that's a popular TV series in Germany. It gives you a sense of what Germans think about BlackRock altogether. And here's Merz, who's associated with it. He's now the
Mhm.
chancellor of Germany. And in fact, to the extent that he has an economic program for Germany, it is the kind of program that you would expect somebody who's worked for BlackRock to come up with. I mean, it's very, very much, expand debt, financialize the economy in all kinds of ways. I mean, he no doubt believes in all of this,
Mhm.
that this is the way to modernize Germany's economy, to make it more like an American economy. But of course, it's not the kind of economy or society that many Germans are used to or want to become a part of.
Well, isn't that interesting that now we have a German chancellor who used to work for BlackRock, and then we have the Canadian Prime Minister who
Yeah,
used to work for the Bank of England, but
yeah,
Mark Carney also used to work for Goldman Sachs as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
these bankers are getting more and more influential.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
the bankers are behind the scene, right? They've always been very influential, but they're behind the scene. But now there seems like they even step forward to become the head of the states, so.
What is even most extraordinary about this is that if you live in the West, as we both do, you would know that so many of the problems originate with the financial crisis of
Uh-huh.
2008, which is caused by precisely the kind of
Mhm.
people and institutions that are now gaining so much influence. So, the more you fail, the more you succeed in the West. And, there's lots of talk about, we need more manufacturing, we need more industry, we need to
Mhm.
focus on technology and AI and all of that. Where are the engineers? Where are the scientists? Where are the people who understand these things, who are entering government and are working to achieve these objectives? You can look for a telescope for them. You might eventually find one somewhere, but I don't know where that person is because I haven't seen them.
Now, Mark Carney, he's visiting the United States. Do you feel, I got the feeling it's kind of a not very productive visit. There were moments that almost a little bit tense because he was talking about Trump still talking about the 51 state, and his answer was, as a real estate developer, you should know some places, just not for sale. And then Trump's response is, never say never. So there are even those kind of little bit tense moment. So what's your take on his visit to the United States?
Well, it was I suppose it had to happen. I mean,
Uh-huh.
very difficult to see how a prime minister of Canada would not visit the United States. So I don't criticize it
Hmm.
because it happened. I mean, it had to happen. But as a meeting, it just exposed the enormous gulf between the two men and the fact that fundamentally they don't like each other. That was how it came across to me.
So it's a courtesy visit, right? Not
Yeah.
not a real. Okay, there is no real.
Well, there's no substance to it. I mean,
Uh-huh.
the meeting between Putin and Xi, which is about to happen, is going to have lots of substance to it. I mean, the Carney and Trump visit isn't going to have any substance behind it at all.
Mhm.
No meeting between Western leaders has the kind of substance that a Putin Xi meeting would have. You're not going to see Western leaders sit with their experts across the table from each other, spend a whole day in detailed discussions, discuss the various problems, work them through, move forward on all the kind of technical issues, consult the various companies, work out the plans, the costings. You're never going to see anything like that between leaders in the West. It's a very, very long time since I saw anything like that between the leaders of the West myself. I think I'd have to go back to the 80s, really.
Well, don't you think that part of the reason they don't have that kind of a in-depth cooperation, working together, is that they don't know what to do? I mean, look at Trump. He's talking so much about bring the jobs back to the United States. It seems like the whole purpose of this tariff war is to do that. And yet, Tim Cook just recently said that he's planning to make all the iPhones in India instead of China. Well, that's not bring jobs back to the United
No,
States.
no.
So what exactly is happening here, right? And Trump didn't seem knows what to do. And he's like, okay, then he thought, okay, we should continue to have this tariff war, even though it's a bad idea already. Everybody told him. So now he's going to have tariffs on all the movies made outside the United States.
Yeah.
Just, I don't think that he has a clear goal, what exactly he's trying to achieve. I
Well,
feel.
he obviously doesn't. And I have to say this altogether. I, there was when he became president, the first 2 weeks, it looked like quite an impressive start. A lot of energy. Doge coming
Mhm.
in, cutting things, getting USAID closed down and all of that. It looked as if we were going to end up seeing something happen. But it seems to me that all that momentum, to the extent it was real, has gone now. I
Mhm.
mean, the tariff war has been a failure. There's been no rethinking of the underlying problems of the United States. You're absolutely right to talk about the Apple story because you're completely correct. How does it benefit America,
Mhm.
American jobs to have apples made in India instead of China? It'll simply make them more expensive, by the way, because, well, I mean, we won't go into that. But anyway,
Mhm.
but you could say the same about foreign policy. I mean, the
Mhm.
war in Ukraine is going on. The conflict with Iran is still going on. All of these things are still going on. And there's no real sign that we're getting any genuine progress to deal with any of them.
Mhm.
And we've had this extraordinary deal with the minerals in Ukraine, which has produced an investment vehicle which looks very much like the kind of ones that the Americans always produce, which
Mhm.
leads to nothing in the end. Anyway, it all reminds me of a famous quip that was made by a Russian prime minister back in the 90s. And when
Mhm.
he was talking about Russia's various attempts during that ghastly decade to conduct economic reform. And he said, we meant well, but everything turned out as always. I mean, it's exactly the same here. We mean well, but everything turns out exactly as it was before.